Hello again, friends. This is Mike. So here's a question for you. Does God wear any kind of specific jersey up in heaven there when he's watching sports teams play here on earth? And what got me started on this line of thought was this past weekend here in the United States, we had what was called the playoffs for the National Football League. And they took place, and there were 4 teams, and now we're down to 2, and those 2 teams are going to meet in a couple weeks for the Super Bowl. However, after the game was over, both quarterbacks of the winning team had something to say about how God helped them and gave credit to God. And I just want to talk about that real quick. It's kind of, I don't know how common it is in other countries. It's not unusual here in the United States to do this, but I wanted to discuss some of the thoughts I had. Stand by. Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help you with questions you might have regarding the awakening of your soul, and particularly to help other left brain types, like I think I am, ask the right questions in our search for a deeper meaning to life. Ultimately, I want to help you unleash your soul from limiting beliefs and smothering paradigms. So, this weekend, there were 2 games. The Kansas City Chiefs played the Baltimore Ravens, and then the San Francisco 49ers beat the Detroit Lions. And after the game, what first started this was I was listening to Patrick Mahomes. He's the quarterback for the winning Kansas City Chiefs. And he said that God had put obstacles in their way for the team and that they had overcome these obstacles. And Patrick Mahomes, over the past, his whole career, he has been very open about his faith and belief in God and how God got them to where they are. I think this is the 4th appearance of the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl in 5 years. It's an amazing record. And I guess one could be forgiven for believing that because Patrick Mahomes prays to God, God answers his prayer, and the Kansas City Chiefs roll on. Now, I have to say that for every Patrick Mahomes out there who's thanking God for what happened this game, there's 100 other players out there in that field, especially Baltimore Ravens, who are saying, WTF, God, what the heck? Why didn't you listen to me, or why didn't you help me? And the game, things happen in the game that are unusual and whatever. What I want to talk about on this little short podcast anyway is, does God root for a specific team? Does praying to God and asking for his help or guidance help your team win over somebody else? And does it apply just to the NFL? Does it apply to my little league team? Does it apply to our local pickup hockey team? How does that work? After that game, I heard the winning quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy, and they beat the Detroit Lions. And he said, all glory to God, the first thing he said when he started his interview after the game. And that's fine. I have to say that, as I said in the outset, it's not uncommon for players to say that here in the United States. I think there's a number of reasons why they do. People like to hear it. We're primarily still a Christian nation and a nation that believes in God. And we like our winners, our athletes, to be humble, to be good sports. If Brock Purdy was to say something like, hey, I'm the bomb, I'm the GOAT, I won the game, you guys thought I was the last pick in the draft, and now here I am, suck it kind of thing. His stock would go down in terms of people liking him. And, these guys, Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy, and others, have got a public persona they've got to maintain. They do endorsement deals, and so their agents and their parents and their families would say, hey, calm down, you need to be a little more humble or whatever if you want to keep making money. But I do think that both Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes do believe that God has some role to play in how well they do. I'm just not so sure. There's some really strange things that happened in the San Francisco 49ers game and the Detroit Lions. For those of you that watched it, there was a play. The Detroit Lions were winning this thing. The 49ers were down 24-7 at halftime, and everybody was shocked. And they came back out after the half, and Brock Purdy throws this bomb of a pass about 50-some yards. For those of you not familiar with football, that's a long way. and the odds of that being successful are very small. Anyway, the guy he threw it to couldn't get it. However, it hit a defender, and normally the defender would intercept it, and that'd be his big moment, and he'd be thanking God later. But anyway, it hit him in the face and bounced off he had a helmet on, bounced off the front of his helmet up into the air, and the receiver that was supposed to catch it and couldn't get to it in the first place, Brandon Ayuk is his name, he jumps up in the air, makes this incredible catch midair, and lands, 4 yards from the end zone. And next play, the 49ers score, and the whole game kind of turned around in that play. So that was a pretty impressive thing to happen. And, if you're a believer that God is in Brock Purdy's corner or the 49ers corner, then, God's up there watching. He's got a bucket of popcorn, and he points to this field and says, do this. And this crazy play happens, and the 49ers are back in the game. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's not how it works, but it got me thinking about how we do make things happen here in this world. Now, many of you know that I believe in a concept called manifestation. And manifestation has a lot of different words. It's called a lot of different things. It's basically believing that you make things happen, or you can influence actions by believing in it, thinking about it, directing your mental energy towards it. Ever since, back in the mid-'50s, I was reading a book by Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He was talking about this unseen, invisible force that you think about and cause things to happen. And my current mentor for manifestation right now, his name's Mike Dooley, says the exact same thing. The funny thing, though, and what Mike Dooley teaches is there's a couple rules to this, right? Or a couple things that he's observed in studying this. One is you can't make things happen for other people, or you can't manifest that your team's going to win, for example. One funny example that Mike likes to use is about a girl he calls Trixie. He's always talking about Trixie and Bruno. And so Trixie is in love with Bruno, and she wants Bruno to fall in love with her. And so she tries to manifest that happening. That, according to Mike, is doomed to failure. You can't manifest and influence somebody else's actions by you thinking that way. However, you can say, Trixie can say, hey, I want a guy with these qualities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 10, and I'd like universe to manifest somebody that meets those qualities. Now, the universe hears you and says, okay, Trixie wants this kind of person. There's 7 billion people in the world. I know a couple of thousand that meet every one of these criteria. And then things start moving and shaking, and synchronicities happen, and the universe brings Bruno into contact with Trixie, and she manifests somebody and lives happily ever after. I did interview somebody, her name wasn't Trixie, but I did interview somebody on a podcast recently, and she did tell me that she had manifested her husband. And the way she described that was she had come up with a list of things that she wanted to find in a man, and, focused on this, thought about this every day. I think it took her less than a month. And this guy showed up, met every one of her criteria. They're happily married. I'm not Dear Abby, so I'm not, advising people to do anything. But that is the concept of manifestation as I understand it. You leave the how things are going to happen are not what you focus on. You focus on the why, the big why about what you want to happen. I just recently did a little training with Tony Robbins, and he says that repeatedly. Do not focus on the hows, focus on the why. So in the case of Trixie, she was the why was all the qualities that she wanted, and she let the universe work the deal. Now back to football, the way it might work is maybe Brock Purdy is super tuned in and able to manifest, and he was just praying to be the best player on the field that day, or just trying to manifest, being successful in the NFL. He was the last guy picked in the draft, as many of you know. And, maybe the universe picked up on that and said, okay, boom, watch this. And God said, hey, hold my beer. And he made that crazy play happen, and the whole game turned around. And Brock Purdy is now the toast of San Francisco in the NFL. And so maybe it works that way. There's a number of people who subscribe to this concept of using your mind to manifest or cause things to happen. There's another quarterback. He played for the college football championship team, the Michigan Wolverines. And Michigan won the championship this year, and his name is J.J. McCarthy. And he talks all the time about how he meditates. He's the guy that you may have seen on television. He sits down at the goalpost, meditates for 10 minutes during the pregame warm-up, takes his shoes off and whatever. And of course, the press think that's unusual. It is. And he's always pictured before the games. But anyway, that may not, I'm sure it's not the only reason they won the championship, but they did win games they weren't expected to win, and they finished winning. J.J. McCarthy said that he tries to focus and calm his mind, and so his mind's part of what he does. Another example of people using their mind, and this is kind of a funny example, but some of you probably remember the movie Cool Runnings, and that's about the Jamaican bobsled team. And they went, Jamaican bobsled team, of course, the funny thing was they're Jamaica bobsleds, Winter Olympics, etc. But as part of the movie, there's a scene where all four of the bobsled team guys are in a bathtub. I guess it's a hotel someplace where they're staying. And they're all crammed together like they would be on the bobsled. And they've got their eyes closed and they're swaying back and forth as they're imagining going down the bobsled and all the curves and everything. And the one guy's calling out the curves and calling out whatever they're doing. But that was a great example of them visualizing mentally going through the whole thing. There's plenty of people that visualize all of this. I know a lot of swimmers that would, put headphones on and just go through the stroke and the turns that they're going to do before they race. So that's pretty common. So, I started this podcast when I was going to do this to say, I'm sure God does not take a team or does not take a side, but I do think that you can influence things. Another thing, I was just recently at a diner that I go to a lot, and it wasn't crowded, but there were a lot of, it's usually crowded, but it was because of the snow, it wasn't that crowded. So there was a number of waiters hanging around, and I was sitting at the counter looking at facing the TV screen. I really wasn't paying attention to it, but I noticed that there were guys around me watching something, and I look up, and they're all focused on this soccer game. And man, they were going crazy, and it was Real Madrid versus Barcelona. And all these guys are cheering. And I said to my waitress, I said, why are all these guys cheering for Real Madrid? And she goes, I don't know. They're all just Real Madrid fans. Not a one of them's ever been to Spain, but they're all Real Madrid fans. I said, are you a Real Madrid fan? She goes, oh, no, I'm a Barcelona fan. And I'm from Peru, and a lot of people in Peru that come from Peru came from Barcelona. And so they really got into this game. And I'm thinking, there's probably people throughout the world that believes that, when God goes to bed at night, he puts on a pair of Real Madrid pajamas and, he's looking out for that team. And there's probably hundreds of thousands of people that believe that when he gets up in the morning, he puts on a Barcelona t-shirt or something, and there's undoubtedly Dallas Cowboy fans that probably believe he wears cowboy slippers. All of us like to think that God is looking out for us and that praying to him will make a difference for our team. And you always get disappointed. Cowboys fans, for example, I don't need to tell you this on the podcast, but they did okay this year and then blew it in the playoffs. Detroit Lion fans, even though they got as far as they did, they were all disappointed. There's long-suffering Boston Red Sox fans and long-suffering Chicago Cubs fans. It's just the way of life. And I don't believe, I guess for the record I should say that, I don't believe that God is sitting up there with a bucket of popcorn and watching a game and deciding who wins and who loses. I do believe, though, that individual players and us, you and me, can influence what happens with our lives by believing and focusing on the why, not the how, and more importantly, taking some kind of action. And that's always the key, right? It's not just deciding what you want and thinking about it. It's taking some type of action. And then the universe guides you so that those actions eventually culminate in what it is that you want to do. So going back to football, for example, Mahomes and Purdy, they might focus and think all they want about what they want to do in their lives, but I'll bet they're the hardest working people on their team. They probably set the example for how you do things. I probably should say as a disclaimer here, I don't think Taylor Swift has anything to do with it. I know she and Travis Kelce have a thing going, and everybody in the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of fired up about that. And for some reason, Travis Kelce, having met Taylor Swift, I don't know much about Taylor Swift, honestly, except my granddaughter's into her in a ridiculous way. But, you know, Kelce's been playing his best football since he met her, apparently, and the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. So I've seen a lot of jokes out there where people were saying, I wish Taylor Swift was dating somebody on the Detroit Lions. I wish Taylor Swift was dating somebody in the Washington Commanders or you know, somebody in the Dallas Cowboys. She's not a good luck charm, and it has nothing to do with, I don't think, how the Kansas City Chiefs are doing any more than God decides your team's going to win or your team's going to lose. But like I said, I think it does come down to individuals, can come down to individuals, and the universe just works on an individual basis with everybody. Anyway, that's my thoughts for what jersey does God wear. If you choose to believe in God, I believe in the universe, and I believe in an all-powerful presence. You can call it God if you want, but I don't think he's wearing any kind of jersey. So thank you for listening. Again, this was driven by current events and just mostly tongue-in-cheek. Thank you. And that wraps up things for today. If you could do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, that'd be great. If you want to leave a comment for any of this, like if you do think God has Real Madrid pajamas, you can go to my website, MikeNicholas.com. My podcasts are all there. This will be there. And you can interact with me and leave comments there if you want. All right. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye-bye.